I'm here with Jools Farrell, who is the Vice President of ORRCA. Tell me a little bit more about what ORRCA does.
ORRCA is, we're the organisation for the rescue and research of Cetaceans of Australia. Our role, we're all volunteers. We look after seals, whales, dugongs and dolphins. If any animal does haul out, we get a call on our rescue line, such as what happened with Reg. We contact our members that are in the areas, because we've got pods all up and down the New South Wales coast. And so we contact that pod. We say we need some members to go down there and monitor, whether it's a seal, a whale, a dolphin, whatever is washed up. We're the only licensed rescue group for cetaceans in New South Wales that can do what we do through parks. So we notify parks. Most of the time they come down and send a ranger as well, just depending on if it's a seal that's unwell or if it's a whale that is stranded or is deceased on the beach, same as with a dolphin. So and the research side of things is what we do is whale migration, which goes from usually March to around about November, December. We count the whales. We have our big census day on the last weekend of June every year, and we've been doing that for now 21 years. And we all go out on the headlands and we count the whales on that one day.
Sounds like a nice way to spend a day. So Reg has actually left us after yesterday. He pulled up, said goodbye at Long Reef, just over there.
Yes.
He's gone south.
Yes.
Is that what seals do?
That's what seals do, and that's what he should have done. For some reason, and we think it's just because he had a good food supply, he obviously felt safe where he was hauling out, even though sometimes there were like up to 100 people around him. He didn't feel threatened. And I think he just was having a good time because he's an old seal and he probably wasn't ready to go travelling. It's very hard to pick their age, but we look at their teeth and his teeth are well worn. We presume he is an old seal. And we think he may have been booted out of a colony of batches by a younger bull seal, which does happen.
Okay.
You know, it's if, you know, the older one is there, you know, looking over the colony, and all of a sudden a young, more healthier one will come in and they'll actually fight, and then one of them will move on.
Do we think that, because Reg has a number of injuries?
Yeah, he's got 2, and we think they could be from having issues with another male seal, but then it could also be when he hauled out on rocky, as we look at firstly how deep they are, if there's any bone showing or if there's any infection. And there was no infection, the wounds were clean, so there was no need for us to get in any vets or anything to look at him. And he's put on weight, which was great. We were monitoring that very closely. We always look at their body condition.
So he was hanging around the Northern Beaches, what, because the food was good, the vibes were good?
Exactly, he had a good food source because he was going from Manly to Long Reef. And that's an aquatic reserve there, especially where the sewerage outlet is. Yep. There's a lot of fish around there as well. So we think that's why he was going between those 2 areas.
He was just living the good life.
I liked being a bit of a celebrity, you know. I think because he seemed to haul out in areas where DY, Manly, Long Reef, Curl.
He definitely seemed to, it did feel like he was picking his places and and the times where perhaps somebody might spot him, you know, it's kind of, but obviously it's important that, I mean, we all get excited and we want to get a photo and to see Reg, but it's very important that we keep that 40-metre distance. So 40 metres is pretty far. Why so far?
If they get irritated or aggravated, they will get up. And what they do, and what Reg did on a few occasions, and I saw him do it myself, if he did get upset, he'd just sit bolt upright and he'd puff his chest out side to side and then he'd yawn. Now people would say, oh, he's tired. No, that's a warning sign. If a seal yawns at you and shows their teeth, that's basically saying, I'm not happy, back off. So that's why we had to have that minimum 40-metre distance.
So what is the process? Somebody's seen, well, the way it seems to go is somebody sees Reg, tells us, we post a photo, but they also call ORRCA, and then you notify national parks. Is it? Do you then speak to the lifeguards and ask them put down a barrier, or do they just know by now that to put up that?
In the beginning, we would just have to get ORRCA members to wherever he was as soon as possible, because the lifeguards weren't aware, of the legal distances. But then by the time he'd hauled himself out, after about a month or so, then the lifeguards already had the cones ready, they had the tape ready, they knew it was 40 metres. So what they would do is they would most of the time be there before, we got someone there, of course, and unless it was very early in the morning, and then they'd already set up a perimeter around him, that 40 metre. Really good to speak to the public and talk to them and get them to ask us questions, about the Australian fur seals, and also the children that came down. They loved it. They loved seeing him, and just explaining, that they can be quite aggressive and they can be dangerous.
Yeah, I have a feeling we've got quite a few budding marine biologists just from Reg's representations for seals over the last few months.
Yeah, definitely.
So now that we have Reg possibly gone forever?
You never know. He might could come back March, April, when the other seals start to come back up the coast. They normally go from usually not much further than the Central Coast. They can be seen at Port Stephens, but they normally just hang around this area. And we've got a colony of New Zealand fur seals at Barrenjoey. There was, the last count was 26. That colony's been there for about 6 or 7 years now. They've all gone. They usually disappear around about November, sometimes December, and they head off to go and look for the girls. And then they do what they want to do, and then they move on.
So is all the fun actually been happening?
It's all happening
down south.
Yeah.
Ah, all right. So they're having their party season,
Yes.
and do they go back the same way? Do they come back up?
Yeah, then they come back
Okay.
up the coast. Yeah. Look, some of them stay down there, but and it's not. And a lot of people were saying they were worried because Reg was by himself. They are a solitary animal.
Oh, okay.
The males, they don't travel in groups like the whales do and the dolphins do. So it's not unusual for them to be seen solitary. He's retired.
He's retired. Okay.
He's in no rush to go anywhere. That's why he hung around here for a while.
So there's been a few sightings of Reg off land as well as on. Tell me a bit about what you heard from a surfer the other day.
It was really interesting to talk to him. He was surfing when the surf was very large, and he was just out there just sitting waiting for a set to come through, and all of a sudden Reg was right there, just basically looking at him, and he could not believe how big he was. He just said, wow. He'd heard about Reg, but he'd never realised how big he was. And he said he had attitude. He basically looked at the surfers as if to go, what the hell are you doing in my patch? But he wasn't aggressive, he didn't approach them, but then he just grabbed a fish and just ripped the fish apart, threw it around right in front of the surfers, sort of showing off as if to go, this is my patch, guys. Just move away, which they did. They did move because they did know, that you've got to be careful of the seals.
Oh, Reggie, such a show off, isn't he?
And one thing I did want to mention was that the same surfer said he actually did see a great white in the water in the same area that Reg was in.
Was this in Long Reef?
Yeah, yes. So one thing that we like to get across to people is it's the same as if you see a bait ball in the water. You don't go in because of sharks. They feed off the fish, they eat fish. And seals are also on their menu. So if you're in the water and you see a seal, I wouldn't be hanging around, I'd be going back.
So Manly Observer's also been tagged in a few posts in the last day or two from what appears to be, they say, oh look, Reg is, sunbaking in Sydney Harbour, or he's defected to the east in Watson Bay. Yeah. But that's a smaller seal, isn't it? That's not Reg.
Yeah, no, that's not Reg.
Okay.
We have probably about 5 or 6 seals that do frequent the harbour. So they frequent the harbour itself and Middle Harbour. And we've got given a few names. We've got Benny, who frequents the Opera House, who sits at the steps at the Opera House. And then we've got another one called Siri, who frequents a private jetty in Sirius Cove. So, and we do have a few that actually haul out on, you know, the markers in the middle of the harbour as you're going out to the heads, the big green things.
The green ones, that's where we've seen one.
Yes, that's not Reg.
That's not Reg.
No, that's not Reg.
Is that an Australian fur seal?
We think they're New Zealand fur seals. They're more common than the Australian fur seal. Australian fur seals aren't as common as the New Zealand fur seals that we get up here. That's why it was quite unusual to have Reg here for as long as he was.
And he was a big boy, so he really,
he was big.
His presence was...
His presence was well and truly known. And look, I looked after him a couple of times on the beach, and just looking at the size of him was just incredible, you know, and he was just so chilled out, you know, but he was very alert. And that's one thing which was great for us, but our concern was the public. You know, that was our main concern, was protecting the public. It really wasn't Reg we were worried about, it was the public we were worried about.
Reg can look after himself.
Reg can look after himself, and he can. And he did show he can look after himself.
There we go. So Reg the seal is safe and well, but in the south. He has defected to the south. He may come back to spend the rest of his retirement, but at least he's happy and healthy, and we are very, very thankful for your time and Reg's time. He was the good news story. He was the celebrity that we needed in a very hard time. Thank you so much for joining me today for a chat, Jools.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kim.